Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever felt weighed down by things you can't even see? What if the heaviest burden you carry isn't money, circumstances, or failure, but expectations? And what if the very thing holding you back isn't the world around you, but the attachments inside you? The truth is, the greatest burden many of us carry is not financial or physical. It's the weight of other people's opinions, judgments, and expectations. We spend years entangled in what others think, what they've achieved, or what they expect from us. But isn't it worth asking, what if your real obstacle isn't the economy, the competition, or even your background, but your attachment to things that were never yours to carry? Think about the high cost of attachment. How many hours do you waste worrying about someone else's opinion? How much energy is spent comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20? The cost isn't only emotional. It's measured in lost potential, wasted productivity, and missed opportunities. I once met a man with a brilliant business idea. He had the talent, the skills, and the drive, but he never launched it. Why? Because he kept focusing on another company doing something similar, one that had years of funding and experience. He convinced himself he couldn't compete. The irony? That company went out of business 2 years later. His idea was better, but he never gave himself the chance to prove it. That's what attachment does. It ties your feet to someone else's pace. You might be capable of sprinting, but you settle for jogging. The cost of attachment isn't just emotional, it's existential. It's the gap between the life you're capable of living and the life you end up settling for. Now, why do we get so attached in the first place? It's because we cling to an illusion, the illusion of control. We convince ourselves that we can control things fundamentally beyond us. We believe we can shape how others see us, when in truth, we can't. We think we can control what others think of us. We think we can control market conditions or the pace of our progress compared to others. We even believe we can control outcomes. But let's be honest, that's a fantasy. And fantasies make a poor foundation for real achievement. Here's what you actually can control: your effort, your attitude, your responses, your growth, your habits, your thoughts. Everything else lies outside your jurisdiction. I once worked with a woman devastated by a failed product launch. She had done everything right: market research, quality control, marketing, distribution. But just before her launch, a competitor released a similar product at half the price. She was crushed, repeating, "It's not fair. I did everything right." So I asked her, "Did you control your effort?" She said yes. "Did you control your attitude throughout the process?" Again, yes. "Did you learn and grow from the experience?" She nodded. Then I told her, "Nothing went wrong. You controlled what you could. The rest was never yours to control." Her mistake wasn't in execution. It was in expecting that controlling what's in your hands guarantees a certain outcome. It doesn't. It never has. That's the illusion that keeps us trapped. The belief that worrying, obsessing, or comparing can somehow bend reality to our will. But reality doesn't bend that way. The detached person isn't detached from effort or excellence. They're detached from the illusion of control. They know the difference between influence and control. They focus their energy where it matters and release what they can't. And in that release, they find a power the attached will never know. So how do we let go? How do we release the attachments that hold us back? First, understand that letting go isn't a single event. It's a practice, built daily, sometimes even hourly. Second, realize that letting go isn't the same as giving up. That distinction is everything. Giving up means abandoning your goals. Letting go means abandoning your attachment to how those goals must unfold. Goals don't need to be achieved in a specific way, at a specific time, or validated by specific people. That's attachment. Instead, we must replace attachment with commitment. Attachment is rigid, but commitment is flexible. Attachment says, "It has to be this way." Commitment says, "I'm devoted to the outcome, but open to the many paths that might lead there." I'll share a personal example. Years ago, I was working on a book. I had a very specific vision for it: a certain publisher, a set release date, a particular marketing plan. But the more I clung to that vision, the more miserable I became because nothing was aligning with my attachment. A mentor once asked me, "Jim, are you committed to writing a book that serves people, Or are you attached to writing a book that satisfies your ego? That question shifted everything. I realized I was committed to serving, but attached to the form that service should take. Once I let go of the attachment and kept my commitment, things began to flow. The book found its shape, a different publisher, one better suited for the message, stepped in, and the timing, though not what I had planned, turned out to be perfect for the market. That's the art of letting go. It's not abandoning your dreams. It's abandoning the insistence that they must unfold exactly as you imagine. The committed person says, "I'll persist until I succeed." The attached person says, "I'll persist until I succeed in exactly this way and on this timeline." One is freedom, the other is a prison. And once you begin to detach and let go, something remarkable happens. You create space to focus on your own unique path. Not your neighbors, not your competitors, not your rivals, yours. But make no mistake, this takes courage. Courage because your path won't look like anyone else's. Courage because your choices won't always be understood or validated. Courage because at times, the path may feel lonely. But here's the truth about courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than fear itself. What matters more than your fear of judgment, of failure, or of being different? It's your commitment to becoming the person you're capable of being. It's your dedication to making the unique contribution only you can bring into the world. I've had the privilege of working with some of the most successful people, and do you know what truly sets them apart? It's not just their relentless work ethic, though they all work incredibly hard. It's not only their intelligence, though each is brilliant in their own way. What makes them stand out is their courage to walk their own path. They're not copycats, nor trend followers. They dare to look at conventional wisdom and say, "That may work for others, but it's not right for my vision, my values, or my journey." I recall one entrepreneur who built his company in complete defiance of industry norms. While others obsessed over rapid scaling and market share, he focused instead on profitability and customer experience. He was criticized, mocked, even written off by industry publications as destined to fail. Yet 10 years later, his company was thriving while many of his loudest critics had gone bankrupt chasing scale without substance. When I asked how he endured the criticism, his response was simple. "I wasn't trying to build their company. I was trying to build mine." That's the essence of focusing on your own path. Understanding that your journey is uniquely yours. The metrics others chase might not be the ones that matter to you. Their timeline might not fit yours. And their strategies, no matter how successful for them, might not be the ones meant for you. To stay focused on your own path requires something many overlook, but is absolutely essential: self-trust. Self-trust is the discipline of listening to your inner wisdom above the noise of outside opinions. It means checking in with your values, your vision, and your purpose before making decisions. That may sound simple, but it isn't. From an early age, we're conditioned to seek validation from others, to trust authorities and experts more than our own intuition. Yet here's what I've observed. The most successful people have an almost stubborn commitment to self-trust. They gather information widely, but filter it through their own discernment. They listen to advice, but they don't follow it blindly. They respect expertise, but they never worship it. I once worked with a woman who was told by countless experts that her product idea wouldn't succeed. The market research was discouraging, the focus groups were lukewarm, and industry analysts were skeptical. Yet she carried a deep, unshakable conviction that she was onto something meaningful. She trusted herself enough to continue when all signs suggested she should give up. Today, her product is in millions of homes. Ironically, the same experts who doubted her now showcase it as a model of innovation. What changed? Not the idea itself, but the perception of it. If she had trusted their judgment instead of her own, that product would never have come to life. Self-trust isn't arrogance, nor is it ignoring feedback or living in isolation. It's the discernment to recognize which feedback deserves weight and which should be released. Self-trust means knowing which feedback serves your path and which pulls you away from it. It's being secure enough in your vision to hear criticism without being derailed, and humble enough to adjust when necessary, yet not so impressionable that every opinion shifts your direction. This kind of self-trust is a discipline. You build it through consistent action aligned with your values. You build it by making promises to yourself and keeping them, by honoring your boundaries, and by speaking your truth, even when that truth isn't popular. And as you strengthen this discipline, something remarkable happens. Your path becomes clearer and your steps more confident. Now let's clear up a common misconception about detaching and letting go. Many think non-attachment means not caring, but nothing could be further from the truth. Non-attachment isn't apathy, resignation, or passivity. It's deeply engaged, fully committed, yet free from the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable or predict the unpredictable. Picture a gardener. They plant seeds with care, water them faithfully, and create the right conditions for growth. But they don't stand over the soil demanding it sprout faster. They don't berate themselves if storms damage a few plants. They don't compare their tomatoes to the neighbors and feel like a failure if theirs are smaller. Instead, they work with the natural order, knowing what is in their control and what isn't. That's non-attachment. And within it lies a profound freedom, the kind that those trapped by attachment never experience. I've seen people paralyzed by attachment, afraid to start a business because they need instant success, afraid to share their art without universal praise, afraid to speak their truth unless everyone agrees. Non-attachment frees you from self-imposed prisons. It lets you act without the crushing weight of needing to control how others respond. Here's the paradox. When you release your grip on specific outcomes, you often create better ones. Without obsessing over how your efforts will be received, you can pour all your energy into the quality of those efforts. The non-attached person doesn't work less. They work without the friction of attachment, and that makes all the difference. One of the greatest benefits of detaching, letting go, and focusing on your own path is the power of present focus. Attachment drags you out of the moment. It pulls you back into regrets of the past or thrusts you into anxieties about the future. But your real power, your clarity, creativity, and effectiveness exists only in the present. I've coached professionals so consumed with where they thought they should be in their careers that they couldn't perform at their best where they actually were. They were physically present but mentally absent, always comparing reality to some imagined alternative. Ironically, that mindset made their desired future even less likely. When you release those comparisons, when you let go of the gap between here and there, your effectiveness multiplies. Presence isn't just a spiritual principle. It's a practical success strategy. It's about bringing your full focus, full energy, and full creativity to the task at hand. The most successful people I've worked with embody this quality. They're not distracted in meetings, not rehearsing the next task while you're talking, not half listening while scrolling through a phone. They're fully here, and in that presence, they notice opportunities others miss and make connections others never see. They build relationships others overlook and nurture connections most people don't have the patience to develop. This is the true power of present focus, available only to those who detach, let go, and fully commit to their own journey. When you're attached to other people's expectations and opinions, your values become cloudy. It's difficult to distinguish between what you truly value and what you've simply been conditioned to value. But when you step back, detach, and walk your own path, something powerful happens. You gain clarity about your personal values. This clarity transforms everything. It allows you to make decisions from a place of inner alignment rather than external pressure. I once worked with a businessman who, by all external measures, was highly successful. He had the corner office, the impressive title, the generous salary. Yet he was deeply unhappy. As we dug deeper, it became clear that his career path was shaped not by his own values, but by attachment to his father's expectations. His father had been a senior executive, and he felt obligated to follow the same path. But when he finally clarified his own values, he discovered he longed for creativity, autonomy, and direct impact on people's lives. With that awareness, he made the bold decision to leave his executive role and start a small creative agency. His income initially dropped by 70%, and many assumed he was in the midst of a midlife crisis. In reality, he was finally honoring his true values. 5 years later, his agency is thriving. He works fewer hours than he once did, but he's more energized and fulfilled than ever because he's finally aligned his work with what matters most. That alignment unleashed a level of creativity and commitment his old role never could. That's the power of value clarity. It's not just about feeling good, though that's certainly part of it. It's about unlocking your potential by aligning your actions with your true values. And here's the fascinating part. When you're clear on your values, detachment becomes easier. You're no longer swayed by every opinion or passing trend, because you have a strong inner compass guiding your choices. To detach, let go, and focus on your own path, you also need another crucial skill: the discipline of boundaries. Boundaries define where you end and others begin. They clarify what's your responsibility and what isn't. They protect your energy, your focus, and your values. Without them, detachment is almost impossible. You'll constantly be pulled into other people's dramas, expectations, and agendas. I've seen it countless times. Someone makes a sincere commitment to focus on their own path, but without boundaries, that commitment never becomes real. They say yes when they should say no. They absorb emotions that aren't theirs. They allow interruptions and distractions that scatter their focus. The result? Their path remains more of an intention than a lived reality. Setting boundaries isn't selfishness, it's stewardship. It's recognizing that your time, your energy, and your attention are valuable resources that must be guarded. A friend of mine learned this while trying to write a book while working full-time. She committed to writing from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. each morning, but the routine quickly unraveled. Her colleagues would text her with work questions before sunrise, and she felt compelled to reply. The turning point came when she drew a clear line. Her phone went into airplane mode from 9 p.m. until 7 a.m. At first, some colleagues resisted, but she stood firm. The result? She finished her book in just 6 months. Even more surprising, her work performance improved because she became sharper and more creative during office hours. That's the power of boundaries. They don't just shield your path from outside interruptions. They also protect others from the silent resentment that builds when you constantly sacrifice your priorities for theirs. Boundaries are an act of honesty. They acknowledge your limits, communicate your priorities, and create the conditions for you to bring your best self to both your relationships and responsibilities. In a world that will always take as much as you give, boundaries aren't optional, they're essential. The next step in this journey is liberation through self-forgiveness. Because as you practice detaching, letting go, and focusing on your path, there will be moments when old patterns creep back. You'll slip into comparisons, cling to outcomes, or stray to follow someone else's path. And this is exactly where self-forgiveness becomes indispensable. Lapses can easily become excuses to abandon the journey altogether. I've seen it happen many times. Someone commits to following their authentic path and stays consistent for a while. Then comes a moment of weakness. Maybe they spend hours scrolling through social media, comparing their life to others, or they make a choice based on external validation instead of internal values. Instead of treating this as a normal part of growth, they take it as proof they'll never change. They tell themselves, "I'll always be this way, so why even try?" This is where self-forgiveness changes everything. It interrupts that destructive narrative and says, "Yes, I slipped. That's part of being human. Now, what did I learn, and how do I return to my path?" I once worked with an artist who constantly fell into the trap of comparison. She would promise herself to focus on her own style, but every time she saw another artist succeed, she lost confidence. Her breakthrough came when she developed a self-forgiveness practice. Each time she caught herself comparing, she would say, "I forgive myself for this moment. It doesn't define me or my art. I now choose to refocus on my path." Over time, the comparisons didn't vanish, but they lost their power. She kept moving forward with grace instead of getting stuck. That's the liberation of self-forgiveness. It keeps you progressing on your path instead of being derailed by the inevitable human moments of weakness or forgetfulness. The next step is developing discernment, learning to filter the information, advice, and influences you let into your life. Not all input is helpful, not all advice is wise, and not all influences are positive. Discernment is the ability to separate what truly serves your path from what distracts or diverts you. In today's world of constant noise, this skill is more critical than ever. I've seen entrepreneurs read one business book that strongly advocates strategy A, then another that pushes strategy B, which completely contradicts the first. They listen to one podcast host promoting approach X, then another swearing by approach Y, which is incompatible with X. Without discernment, they end up confused and paralyzed. With discernment, however, they filter every idea through their own values, goals, and circumstances to decide what truly applies to them. Discernment isn't about shutting yourself off from new ideas. It's about evaluating those ideas in the context of your own path, rather than blindly adopting them because they worked for someone else. The discerning person constantly asks, does this align with my values? Does it serve my vision? Is it right for my circumstances? Does it resonate with my intuition and experience? These questions act like filters, letting in what's useful while screening out what's distracting or misleading. And here's a key truth. Sometimes the most popular advice is the least applicable to your unique situation. Just because a strategy is widely accepted doesn't mean it's right for your journey. The most successful people I know are unafraid to question conventional wisdom, to test assumptions, and to trust their own judgment, even when it takes them in a different direction from the crowd. That's discernment in action, and it's essential for anyone who wants to walk their own path instead of following someone else's formula. The reward? The joy of authentic success. When you detach from other people's definitions of achievement, release the need for validation, and fully commit to your own authentic path, you discover something remarkable happens. You discover a joy in your work and life that no amount of conventional success can provide. I've met people with impressive titles, great wealth, and public recognition who were profoundly unfulfilled. And I've also met people with modest careers and little recognition who were deeply satisfied. The difference wasn't in their external achievements, but in their relationship to them. Those chasing success as defined by others, whether by peers, parents, industry, or society, never felt they had enough. There was always someone with more money, more status, or more influence. Their attachment to these external metrics kept them running on a treadmill, always moving but never arriving. Meanwhile, those who defined success on their own terms, aligned with their values, purpose, and authentic interests, experienced a deeper sense of satisfaction. They weren't immune to challenges or setbacks, but they carried a baseline contentment that didn't depend on outside validation. This is the joy of authentic success. It's not the fleeting high of recognition or possessions, but the lasting fulfillment of living in alignment with your truest self and making the contribution only you were designed to make. I once spoke with a teacher who had been offered an administrative role with far more pay and prestige. Her colleagues urged her to accept, calling it the next step in her career. But as we talked, it became clear her true gift and her deepest joy was in direct connection with students. That administrative role would have pulled her away from the work she loved. She declined the promotion, shocking her colleagues. Years later, she told me it was one of the best choices she had ever made. She thrived in the classroom, developing innovative teaching methods that gained recognition far beyond her school. She wrote books, led workshops, influenced education policy, and all the while continued doing the direct teaching that brought her joy. Had she taken the promotion to please others or to fit someone else's idea of career success, none of that would have happened. By staying true to her own path, she not only found personal fulfillment, but also had a greater impact than she would have achieved as an administrator. That's the paradox of authentic success. When you stop chasing impact defined by others and fully commit to your own path, your influence often grows in ways you could never predict. The joy isn't just in the outcomes. It's in the daily experience of doing work that feels true to who you are. It's waking up engaged rather than resigned, being present with what you're creating instead of constantly looking over your shoulder at others. This joy becomes a compass. When you feel it, you know you're on the right path. When it's absent for too long, it's a sign to reassess and realign. The legacy of authentic living. When you detach, let go, and focus on your own path, you don't just transform your present, you shape your legacy. And legacy isn't only for the wealthy or the famous. Each of us leaves an imprint through how we live, the choices we make, the work we produce, the values we embody, and the way we treat others. When you live attached to others' expectations, always chasing external validation, your legacy becomes diluted, a faint shadow of what it could have been if you had followed your authentic path. But when you commit to your unique journey, your legacy gains clarity and power. It becomes a true reflection of your gifts, values, and perspective. I once worked with a man in his 60s who was weighed down by regret. By most external measures, his career was successful, yet it came at the cost of suppressing his real interests and talents. He had followed the path his family and industry expected, ignoring his own inner voice. As retirement approached, He realized his legacy would be a lifetime of work that never truly represented who he was. It was competent, even impressive, but not authentic. That realization pushed him to make a bold change. He stepped away from his executive role and launched a small nonprofit centered on an issue he deeply cared about. Many called it a late-life crisis, but in truth, he was reclaiming his authentic path. And in just 5 years, the work he did there created a legacy far more meaningful than the 3 decades before it. His story reveals a powerful truth. It's never too late to commit to your authentic path. Even a short season of aligned living can create a legacy richer than decades spent following someone else's script. And remember, your legacy isn't just about what you leave when you're gone. It's about the impact you're making right now, today. Your legacy is revealed through how authentically you live. It's the permission you give others to honor their own truth when you honor yours. It's the possibilities you open up when you show the courage to follow your unique path. In a world filled with imitation and conformity, authentic living becomes a revolutionary act, a bold statement that your gifts, your perspective, and your journey truly matter. And that's a legacy worth creating. As we come closer to the conclusion, let me emphasize this. Detaching, letting go, and focusing on your own path isn't a destination you reach once and for all. It's a daily practice, a continual choice, a way of engaging with life. Every day brings new chances to release outcomes you cannot control. Each day presents moments where letting go serves you better than holding on. And each day challenges you to either walk your authentic path or be pulled away by others' expectations. This practice isn't always easy. Our habits of attachment run deep, and society constantly pushes us toward comparison and external validation. Fear can tempt us toward the comfort of conformity instead of the uncertainty of our own unique path. That's why it helps to create simple daily practices that strengthen your commitment. These might include a morning reflection to reconnect with your values and set clear intentions, regular digital detoxes to break the cycle of comparison, or journaling to process your thoughts and stay aligned. Processing emotions and clarifying your authentic desires can be supported through simple practices: journaling, meditation, honest conversations, and mindful reviews of your commitments. Meditation teaches you to release attachment to fleeting thoughts and feelings. Journaling brings clarity to your desires. Trusted friends help you stay aligned with your path. Regular reviews ensure your commitments reflect your true values. Even celebrating small wins keeps you connected to progress on your unique journey. I once worked with a writer who developed a powerful daily ritual. Each morning, before checking email or scrolling through social media, she opened her journal and wrote, "Today I commit to my unique path as a writer. I release attachment to outcomes I cannot control. I let go of comparison. I focus on creating work that is authentically mine." This simple practice became her anchor, helping her maintain clarity and resolve in an industry filled with pressure to chase trends, compare, or compromise her voice. Your practices may look different. What matters most is that they are intentional, consistent, and aligned with your commitment to detach, let go, and focus on your own path. And now, as we bring this journey together, let me remind you of the key lessons we've explored: the cost of attachment, the illusion of control, the art of letting go, the courage to follow your own path, the discipline of self-trust, the freedom of non-attachment, the power of present focus, the clarity of values, the strength of boundaries, the grace of self-forgiveness, the gift of discernment, the joy of authentic success, and the lasting legacy of living true to yourself. And then comes the daily practice of detachment. These aren't just abstract concepts to ponder. They are invitations to live differently, to engage with life from clarity instead of conditioning, to make choices rooted in your authentic values rather than external pressure, to measure your success by inner alignment instead of outside validation. The invitation before you is powerful. Detach from what was never yours to control, let go of what no longer serves you, and commit fully to the path that is uniquely yours. This path doesn't promise a life without challenges. You will still face obstacles, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But it does promise a new relationship with those challenges. Obstacles become opportunities for growth. Setbacks become course corrections, and doubts transform into invitations for deeper clarity. I've witnessed this transformation in people from every walk of life. The executive who finally led with her values instead of following industry norms. The artist who stopped chasing popular styles and discovered his true voice. The parent who rejected society's narrow definitions of success and chose to nurture their child's authentic interests. The entrepreneur who built a business around purpose rather than a standard startup playbook. What unites these stories is a simple but profound decision: to detach, to let go, and to focus on an authentic path. And that choice didn't limit them, it expanded them. By releasing attachment to outside approval, by letting go of borrowed definitions of success, by committing to their own journey, they amplified their impact. They became more helpful, more connected, more authentic. Because the world doesn't need more copies. It needs originals. The world doesn't need more people copying formulas. It needs the unique contribution only you can make. And the courage to step into that contribution, to detach, let go, and focus on your authentic path, is available to you right now. Not in some distant future when conditions feel perfect. Not when you have more support, security, or certainty. It begins here, in this moment, with the resources already within your reach. The first step is simple yet powerful. Decide to begin. Notice where you're attached to outcomes you cannot control. Identify what it's time to release. Clarify the path that quietly calls you beneath the noise of others' expectations. And remember, this decision isn't made once. It's made daily, sometimes even hourly. It shows up in small choices and big ones, in how you respond to criticism, how you handle setbacks, how you celebrate victories, and how you measure progress. With each choice to detach, to let go, and to stay focused on your path, you build momentum. You strengthen your capacity for authentic living, making every decision that follows clearer and easier. Over time, these choices compound into something far greater. They don't just reshape how you work or achieve, they transform how you live. This is a life no longer consumed by the exhausting chase for external validation, but fueled by the energizing alignment with your true self. That, my friends, is a life worth creating, a journey worth embracing, and a path worth following. The invitation is before you, the choice is yours, and I believe you have the power to choose wisely. I wish you health, happiness, and fulfillment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily, for more inspiration on living authentically.